Hi, and welcome to Amanda and Zoe's Pooch-Tastic podcast. Zoe's here. Today's topic is going to be allergic reactions after vaccines, mainly because Zoe did have a really nasty allergic reaction to her vaccine on Friday. She had the 3-in-1 booster. It's like parvo, distemper, etc., as well as her rabies. Unfortunately, the place I go to only has rabies for 1 year, which is kind of ridiculous. It's supposed to be every 3 years, but I have a feeling, they just want to make money like everybody else. So anyway, I did read somewhere that certain breeds are predisposed to having reactions like German Shepherds, I think German Pinschers, Dachshunds, Border Collies, Akitas, etc., etc., etc. But I also think that, it's more common in young dogs and, you know, you, just certain breeds, and it can happen to anyone, regardless of breed. And by the way, if you hear the squeaking, that says me. She has the cone of shame on because her allergies are acting up. If you'd like to try to see... Come here, Esme. Come here. Let's see if we can get you. No, she doesn't want to be on camera. She has the cone of shame on her, my poor little Bichon. She's not feeling very well. So she'll just be squeaking throughout the entire podcast. Anyway, so, most dogs, when they get vaccines, they'll just be kind of lethargic and, they just won't feel well because, vaccines aren't fun. And I think Esme wants to come on camera now. See, you can see she has the cone of shame. So anyway, Esme's going to be our special guest today. So anyway, the signs you should look for are, the ones that you should go to the evet for are, the face welling up, really puffy. Sometimes the front paws will puff up, like constantly scratching at their face. The skin might be a little itchy. Restlessness, and the more severe signs of anaphylactic shock: low blood pressure, white gums, vomiting, seizures, collapse, low blood pressure, shaking. Thankfully, Zoe only had a really puffy face. Instead of looking like a German Shepherd mix, she looked like a pit bull, which is really weird, and her front paws blew up. And she was really restless, and I noticed the skin around her muzzle was kind of itchy. It looked red and looked like she had hives, and that's basically what it was. It was the dog version of hives. So unfortunately, because we took her around 5, the vet was closed by the time I had run out to run errands, and by the time I got home, it was close to 7:30, so the place was closed. I called the evet, and they said, okay, you gave her Benadryl. Because Zoe's 26 pounds, they gave her 25 milligrams of Benadryl, which is just one pill. And, they said as long as she's breathing okay, she should be okay. If anything, go to the emergency vet and, just monitor her, but she should be okay. And then, I had given her the Benadryl, and I noticed about maybe an hour or so later, she was doing a little bit better. Still kind of swollen and puffy, but it was slowly decreasing. And by, I would say, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, she was fine. I stayed up to monitor her. But it is scary. So honestly, if you have a dog that's prone to getting these kind of reactions, I would definitely have Benadryl on hand. You can give them, I think it's 1 milligram per pound, but you'd have to check with your vet because I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. You can give them Benadryl as long as it doesn't have pseudoephedrine in it. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but plain Benadryl should, do the trick. And you might have to think about spacing the shots too. I think that's what I'm going to do next time. Thankfully, Zoe's pretty much done with her shots for the year. I think she's due in maybe spring. So I'm going to space them out. Because I do believe the first time she ever had a reaction was the rabies and 3-in-1 booster. And her face was swollen, and her eyes were all puffy. It was horrible. I felt so bad. But, now I always have Benadryl on hand. Thankfully, I think she had the lepto in the summer. It was just like a bump on her nose, and, it went down within an hour after I had given her Benadryl. So, this poor thing. But yeah, so my advice to other pet owners who have dogs that are prone to getting allergic reactions, definitely see if you can get an antihistamine before the shot. As my doctor did give Zoe an antihistamine before the shot, but I think she might either need a stronger dose or maybe she needs an antihistamine and a steroid. A couple of my friends have mentioned that their dogs have had reactions, and they said an antihistamine and a steroid usually does the trick. And definitely ask your vet if you can space them out. So, like, let's say, like Zoe, they're reacting to something in the rabies and the 3-in-1 booster. Maybe do the rabies one day and then wait like 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month, and then do the booster. That's what I think I'm gonna do because I did call it in to the vet the day before. She was fine. She was eating and drinking okay. She was running around. And, they put a note in her chart and they said they'd let the vet know. And they told me as long as her breathing was normal, which it was, thank goodness. She was howling and barking. So I knew she couldn't be feeling too poorly if she was howling and barking at everybody that walked past my house. It's a good, she was okay. And, they said as long as her breathing wasn't labored and she wasn't having seizures or anything, Benadryl will usually do the trick. So that's good to know. But honestly, my advice to anyone whose dog has that is definitely see if you can space the shots out. There's something you can do called a blood titer test, and it sees how many like antibodies the dog has. So, if they're good, if the test shows that they're still preventative with rabies, you don't need to give it, or whatever shot they need, like lepto or Bordetella and things like that. But it's really expensive, so I don't really recommend that unless you have a lot of money to burn. But, if you're like me and you're on a budget, I would definitely have plain Benadryl on hand and, ask your vet about the dosage. So, for Zoe, because she's 26 pounds, one pill will do the trick. But if you have a smaller or larger dog, you'll have to ask the vet. I would also highly recommend spacing it out because, again, I did notice with Zoe that with 2 or more shots, her face tends to puff up more. Whereas with one shot, she just had like maybe like a little bump on her nose. It looked like a minor bee sting. That's actually what I thought it was at first. It was like, did she get stung by a bee? And then I realized she had the shot and I was like, oh, she's having a reaction. And I just gave her some Benadryl and she was fine. Tired, but fine. And, space it out and see if they can get like an antihistamine or a steroid beforehand. I'm definitely going to ask my vet if he could give her either a stronger dose or an antihistamine and a steroid just to be on the safe side. And I think when I get home, I'll just give her some Benadryl, just, as an FYI. I'll obviously clear it with my vet beforehand, but, just to be on the safe side. And I would also highly recommend scheduling the vet appointments in the early morning or in the afternoon so that way, in case they are having a reaction, you can just go right back to the vet. My mistake was making it at like 4:50, 5 o'clock, and by the time the reaction kicked in, they were closed. But if there is an emergency vet by you, and I would definitely look that up, it's always good to have on hand that kind of knowledge. You could always go to the e-vet just to be safe than sorry, but again, the signs that you really need to go rush to a vet, whether it's emergency vet or your regular vet, is if the dog is shaking, is having seizures, it's labored breathing, white gums. I mean, I checked Zoe because, like I said, she was more restless than usual. She's had an allergic reaction like maybe 2 or 3 times beforehand, and she was never that restless. She kept pulling her face. I was like, she couldn't get comfortable. I mean, I can't blame her. I think if my face blew up, like I got stung by a bee and I was having an allergic reaction, I don't think I'd be able to get comfortable either. But it is scary. Like, that was probably the worst I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely get the number for an eVet and know where it's located. So, whether the dog is having a true anaphylactic reaction or it's just like, a mild allergy, you should definitely go. Because I have heard, stories, there's always been horror stories, like these dogs go into anaphylactic shock and they die. So, you definitely want to keep an eye on them and definitely space it out just to be on the safe side. It's better to be safe than sorry. Because I did read online, now how true this is, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. Sometimes there could be no reaction, sometimes it might just be the same reaction, or the reaction could get worse. So, in conclusion, my advice to dog owners who have pets that have the same kind of reaction that Zoe has, do me a favor, don't do what I did. Make sure you schedule it either in the morning or the afternoon if you can. If, for some reason you can't because of work or other life issues, have the number and the location of an emergency vet nearest you on hand, just, to be on the safe side. Try to space them out. See if you can get the proper dosage for Benadryl, for plain Benadryl. And again, obviously ask your vet about what kind of Benadryl you can give them. And, have that on hand too. Space them out and see if you can get, an antihistamine done beforehand, or an antihistamine and a steroid. So, it's just better to be safe than sorry, because I almost had a heart attack when I came home and I saw Zoe's face just blow up and her feet, and it's scary. I mean, I know I've seen her have these kind of reactions before, so I just immediately went for the Benadryl. But, it's you don't want to see your pet like that. It's just heartbreaking. So again, learn from my mistake, and always read up on the signs of true anaphylactic shock, and make sure you monitor your dogs really, really carefully. I knew Zoe was going to be okay because her breathing was fine. She was drinking water. She was begging for food. She was howling. So I knew she could breathe. She just seemed really itchy. But, I'm sure it's like having a flu shot when you're a human. You kind of feel really poorly for like a day or so after. And I did notice even on Saturday, because she had the reaction Friday. Saturday, she was playful and stuff, but she still seemed kind of lethargic. She still seems a little out of it now too. But, it's probably going to take her a couple of days. I mean, I'm sure between the vaccine and the reaction and Benadryl, probably knocked her for a loop. So, anyway, I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope this episode was useful. So again, in conclusion, learn the signs of true anaphylactic shock and always have an evet's number and address on hand. Make sure to space out the shots too. See if you can get your vet to give them some kind of antihistamine or an antihistamine and steroid shot beforehand. Have plain Benadryl and learn the proper dosage for your pet. Just, as an FYI, be on the safe side. And if you have the money, definitely do a blood titer test. But, that's not feasible for everyone. So, that's why I put it last. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good evening and have a very happy Thanksgiving. Bye.